gradient.
At least it's certain.
Should we consider creating like a map and mark on the map like all the points that we're getting all the data from?
I think that's a great idea.
Oh, I was just going to kind of drift.
Okay. That will work. All right, and turn this over. So good news technology. You're gonna like this.
Yeah, I figured I was going to.
Oh, that is slick looking.
State of the art.
All right, so on these, Catherine, I tell you what, I'll swap spots with you.
I can stand. Really, I'm okay.
Okay. So on these, with a plastic film on it and everything,
Yeah, I still got it.
it's
Yeah,
brand new.
brand new.
All right, so we got this thing on, and you'll be able to see there's a readout of. Okay, right now it's got pressure on it. My guess is it'll show us. There we go. Here, take that. Take a look. You can actually see things. It'll give you a readout on all the parameters. And it's just a real-time sensor. So what we're going to be looking at doing is we're going to record some data. If we want to figure out where you are in relation, make a note of the dock of the pier, try to look this up back on Google Earth, or if you want to drop a pin with your phone, something like that. We're going to make this a real simple little map exercise and take some parameters along with it. My suggestion would be hit a few depths with the sensor, because you may see some difference between the surface and bottom waters.
Absolutely, I was trying to get my notes in order.
Yeah, it's got the calibration cup on it right now, so you're ready. And there's a weight at the bottom of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that wire being coiled the way it is, it might need.
Sounds good.
So
Yeah,
actually,
I've never used one that fancy before.
Yeah, let me actually show you how that counts.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I'm taking too much of the sensor.
This guard actually stays on here.
There we
And then you can screw that weight onto the bottom of that.
Yeah, this is much slicker than any I've ever used.
Me too.
I think you can put your thumb on the plate.
I can give you. You want to just do the latitude and longitude? Because I can give you that.
Yeah, we'll do that. It'll be right all around.
This is slick.
And you just drop it in real slow, or
Yeah, so
a certain metered.
yeah, you get it. What they used to say, I don't know if they still recommend it, was very slight movements with it. Honestly, these things respond so quickly that I don't know that it makes that much difference.
Then you go into you feel it at the bottom. Is that it?
That's tougher than you think. A lot of this bottom is so soft and squishy that sometimes you'll pull it back up and take a look, and it's covered in muck. So that's the real danger, is putting the probes into the muck and not getting a reading. Not that it's going to damage them necessarily, so soft, but still
Drop that in my.
And we're gonna go right at you.
Oh no, I'll just wherever.
drift in the area. We should be good enough.
Okay, do you want me to drop it in? Or how do you want to do
Make
this?
sure. Do I need to make sure it's on?
I think you're good to go.
And just watch that wire claw. I haven't actually unhooked it yet.
Just drop it on.
Just ease it in, yeah.
Oh, there we go. It's got a light button on there. That's fancy.
All right, so what we'll probably be able to do is, what do you think? We got a couple meters depth here?
Yeah. Right over there, I think we've got about 3-4 meters.
Oh,
And then out
okay.
in the middle, probably here's about the hole right here.
We'll probably be okay. I'm just gonna adjust it.
I'm gonna stick that little rubber cap in the top there, right in the top of the main instrument. That little
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I was charging it earlier.
So I need to read it off, or
All right. So, okay, why don't you two can work together? I don't know. So you said 3 to 4 meters depth here.
Right over here, it's deeper. Maybe as much as 8.
8. Wow.
Well,
It's a lot deeper in the channel here. Meters. All right. Well, either way, you should be able to be getting a reading on the pressure depth. And I think it's fair to say you can probably drop it at least 4 without any questions.
yeah, I'm at 2 point. Pressure depth, the DEP.
Yeah, we got the limb. That should be meters.
So we're at 2.3 right now.
If you want, you can just drop it all the way down. It's not going to hurt it. You know, just go slow. And we can see what kind of depth we have exactly. Table might not be long enough.
Well, right now I'm unwinding to the readout or the handheld side. So there we go. Now you got some way to play with.
Uh, 4.2.
Use data
You think it's not on?
Yeah. 4.3 right now.
Well, I can tell you what you can do. Instead of making feel good, watch it this little. See if you can still do this there. Okay, if you think that's the bottom, pull up just to here and take your first reading, and you'll record your depth, and you should at least do salinity, dissolved oxygen, probably temperature.
You want percentage, or do you want to? I guess got dissolved oxygen percentage and dissolved oxygen mg over L.
Percent will be easier to work with. It's not temperature dependent. It's already made that adjustment for you.
All right, so we're at 3.2 meters depth. Yeah, pressure depth. Oxygen percentage 59.8%. Temperature is 22.8 degrees centigrade. What was the other one that you wanted?
salinity.
What else you got? Yes.
Salinity and PSU. I don't know what PSU is. Salinity.
Yeah. Practical salinity units. It's a completely made up term.
So that's 1.43.
4, 3.
Salinity.
Practicals. Practical
Yeah,
salinity.
PSU.
Yeah, PSU.
You can change the units on that.
Okay.
Go into the settings.
Yeah.
And that's fine as long as we're seeing trends. Is the right.
You want the pH?
Parts per thousand, I think. If I'm remembering right, that's been a long time.
You also have pH on here. You can take it.
Why not throw it in?
Yeah, 6.71 pH. We're still at that same depth, so we're good. And millimeters HG was,
Yeah, it's pressure. Don't worry about that. We're already got a depth reading.
and then SPC.
Specific conductivity. I wouldn't mess with that.
All right, so that's all of them.
All right, then I tell you what. Let's pull up. So you were at 4 meters.
We're at 3.2 at that one.
3.2.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's try it about 1.75, give or take. We'll take it.
Yeah.
Pull up a second. You two are gonna have to.
Yeah, I'm watching. I got it. Yep. Go ahead. You're still in the threes right now, so you're good.
Same location.
All right, 2.4. All right, hold up. We got come on up a little bit. 2.4, 2.3, 2.2, 2.1, 2. Oh, hold on. You jumped from 2 to 1.2 to 1. So you're 1.1 right now. So go a little deeper.
Sometimes they adjust.
Yeah, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, and then it did it again. It jumped. It jumped to 2.6.
2.6. Possible if you want.
2 point. Yeah,
A couple times.
you're at 2.4 right now.
Oh, now.
Still 2.4. 2.3. Still in the 2.3. 2.2. Oh, stop right there. You're at 1.4 now.
That's good.
Yeah, we'll take that. All right, so temperature 22.9 degrees centigrade. Distributed oxygen percentage 73.2%. Salinity PSU is 0.77. And pH 6.66. And that was all of them.
One, two, three, four.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. One more, about a half meter under the water.
Pulling out.
And this one may be just easy eyeball to get it up to the edge. And then, so about how far that is, drop it in.
All right.
Yep.
Right there. You're right. Right there on a point. No, you're at 0.08. So you wanted half a meter, didn't you?
Yeah, that's close enough to serve the
Yeah. All right. So we're at 0.10 is your depth. So. All right. Temperature. You have 23 degrees centigrade. Distributed oxygen percentage 76.3%. Salinity PSU 0.57. And your pH is 6.59.
Got it all?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, hold on.
All the way out? Alright. What's the recommendation on one of these things? Are we going to site to site leave?
You're at about 1 meter to
Maybe about all you've got here.
0.7, maybe 2.
It may mean you hit the sediment.
Saying 3 right now. .5, 3.6. Look, it's holding it pretty well now. Yeah.
Gravity resource.
It's hanging pretty steady, about 2.7 now. 4.1 is the bottom.
I guess that means got a lot of water pushed in. That would line up.
All right, so here we go. At that depth, we got 23 degrees centigrade. Distributed oxygen, 83%. salinity PSU 0.90 and pH 6.76. Alright, so now we want to go up a little bit. Go up to 1.7. Yeah, so you're at 3.6 right now. Go around 2. Yep. Keep on going. Good. Check right. 5, 3. Up just a little bit further. Yeah, you're 2.2 right now. 1. That's good. Alright, we'll take it right there. Depth is at 2.05. Temperature 23.1 degrees centigrade. Distributed oxygen 0.8%. Salinity PSU 0.90 and pH 6.90. Alright, and up. Alright, got up half a meter right there. 0.4, 0.3, 0.2. Alright, so we'll take it at 0.20 depth. Yep. 2 meters depth, 23.1 degrees centigrade temperature. Distributed oxygen 83.4%. Salinity PSU 0.87 and pH 6.82.
Good?
Yep.
Bring it back up. Essentially creating a water parameter profile. Yeah, maybe I don't know.
What's it called, the water?
So instead of like the single shots we did, this is like a whole bunch going up and down.
Yeah, so so you've got to set. You set every 10 seconds.
Yeah, but I don't know when it's triggered.
Sure.
So I'm just, if I let it hang there for 20 seconds, I know at some point it's sampled.
Instead of having individual points for whatever 15 or 20, we'll be done with these samples. It'll just be an Excel file. Look through the data.
Alright, so what I'm recording is just the location of when.
So
Yeah, location,
Location
time.
and time. When I started and when I finished. And that's so that when you look at that file, you know that, okay, at this time, we were at this site, and so all the data in between these two time points were there. And it's recording the depth and everything.
So these two data sets will be a little bit different because of the way that we did it, right?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. What we're trying to draw from these are trends and understanding the system a little bit better, so we can compare high tide, low tide, middle of the day, earlier in the morning. Not having more data points, it's going to be impossible to make any firm conclusions, because a straight line between any 2 points is a line, so you can't really run stats on that. What you can do is start to put the pieces together and say, all right, this may have some control, maybe this is playing a role here. How did they change between the 2 times?
And you can so like what you did with the other one is you dropped it down to a certain depth which you could read on your instrument, and you took a reading. And this will have the depth recorded, and it'll have probably several readings at that depth, and you can just average it to get that at that depth. But the thing is it may be 5 readings, it may be 3 readings, and that's because I basically wanted to make sure that we got at least one.
perspective, I went out with one group from MSU as well. They were taking some of the same data sets. They were using YSI and dropping it down. But we went out into the Gulf, and some of the sites they had were substantially deeper than what we've got here. And they set theirs to sample. I want to say it was every 1 or 2 seconds. And they got out there and they just started feeding line. It was non-stop. And they pulled it back up just as quick. We're done. In time now.
349.
I understand why they did it. It was much deeper, but at the same time, you saw earlier, sometimes those parameters are still adjusting.
Yeah.
And I was always a little unsure of just how accurate
some of that was.
Yeah, if they're getting real-time responses, well, it's changing every second or 2 seconds.
Right.
Right. And so you get, and not only do they change, but they respond at different speeds. Like, the EO is going to take it 2 or 3 seconds to adjust. Depth, depending on the type of sensor. So this one here adjusts pretty quickly, but Davis was saying that instrument that y'all were using, it took it a second or 2 to figure out where it was at. So maybe it has a smaller port. It's measuring depth by pressure. And the bigger the port, the quicker it responds, the more chance there is of cracking and getting it. So it probably has a smaller port that takes it through time.
Priest drill of, wave and tidal energy. So this is where you're going to get vertically uniform salinity as you go out further away. Tidal currents basically eliminate any layering, and you basically have no wedge on this one. Fjords, this one was kind of interesting, the concept, talking about like deep, narrow channels as a result of glaciation, and very small, smaller surface area compared to the other ones. You get a little mixing, and the freshwater really extends out because you got that sill right there as the glacier advanced, and that's where it kind of stopped before it retreated. So the influx of salt water is rather minimal. Okay, so we get to the importance of the estuaries. We talk about the economic benefits, what it does for the community, the coastal, commercial fishing, shipping, property values, and community groups. It's pretty important. And Dr. Phipps, he hit on a couple of things too that I found out that was pretty interesting. We'll add to some of the information. We'll just go over that. So basically, they comprise about 13% of all the land in the area, and about 22 out of the 32 largest cities are on an estuary. So you get, and it also too, like the employment in the U.S. employment accounts for about 40%. So it's pretty significant economically for, the U.S. economy. Tourism generally gets you about $8 to $12 billion a year. Commercial fishing catch, which is kind of interesting, about 75% of the nation's catch will come from areas of the estuary. And property values, especially areas where estuaries are restored, populations have increased, property values have increased, and the figure I came across was a 6-to-1 return on investment, which is pretty huge because it also create additional jobs. Property values will go up. One example was in California, over at Huntington Beach. They restored the estuary, and property values went up by 36 million. So, the job ratio, I think, was like 17 to about 33 jobs for every $1 million that went into restoration. So, pretty important. And then, you know, the population factor that we heard mentioned yesterday. So the National Coalition, National Coastal Condition Assessment 2015, Dr. referenced the fact that Baldwin County has increased significantly in population, which is really true. It's one of the counties that has really blown up and caused that 13% increase in population throughout the Gulf Coast. Also like habitat, we've got, okay, so one thing about tourism here. I messed up my slide here. My notes. Okay, so, you know, basically, you know, it's a natural infrastructure. Wetlands and estuaries, they act together. It's going to reduce damage, and it's about anywhere between 22 to 30% during significant storms. And that's going to save millions of dollars. Act as a filter. What was interesting was in the aquarium yesterday, I didn't find any figures anywhere, but about you know, filtering out contaminants. When that water comes through, it's about takes out about 79% of the nitrogen and about 39% of the phosphorus. They also act as a carbon sink, and they're more they're better at reducing carbon dioxide than forests are, about 5 times better than forest. And interesting thing with salt marsh is about 10 times more effective than like a tropical forest. So, and you know, we've also heard it too today and the day before that they act as a sponge, so they'll absorb that storm water and everything and minimize the damage on there. So obviously they bring a lot of good things to life. Estuary environments. The nurseries of the sea. So, you know, very, very diverse habitats. You've got, you know, really, you know, breeding grounds for a lot of the fish and shellfish and everything. Oysters are particularly, like, you know, sensitive. Oh, wait. I'm sorry, I messed up my notes. Well, I guess I kind of hit on everything there that I meant to say. Just talking about the, you know, talking about the improvements with the clean water and everything. Okay, so here's the other thing here: threats to estuaries. So pretty significant. I mean, you got point, non-point chemicals pollution, and it really causes sensitivity to breeding. Here's where I was going to go. So oysters really, you know, they can be fickle. They really thrive with turbidity about salinity about 12 or greater, and they'll perish 5 or less. And clams are particularly, you know, sensitive because they require salinity 15 or greater, but clam eggs will struggle if salinity is less than 20. So what can we do? There's, you know, I mean, we got other threats here. We've got all the influences from the land, the fertilizers, oil, gasoline, and everything. They all contribute. They'll run off into there and can cause significant damage to estuaries. Sea level rise. I won't touch on HABs or eutrophication. But sea level rise, we can see, you know, they talk about the influence, they talked about that when we went to go see the gators and everything. Loss of wetlands, it's very significant, and I'll talk about the restoration efforts. So, you know, personal efforts, like what can we do personally to make changes? And there's a lot, you can see that in the recommendations here about what to do and basic improvements. What I particularly found interesting was the partnership efforts. And you know, like the National Estuarine Research Reserve, which, you know, right over here, they're basically, you know, the leader in estuary research, stewardship, and education. I did bring this. This was their strategic plan. It's pretty interesting read. Talk about goals and objectives and everything, what they do, who they're funded by. Now they were established by the Coastal Zone Management Act of 1972, and they, basically it's a network of 30 coastal sites. So they're basically, they're doing a lot with protecting restoration and just educational outreach, developing coalition with other, interest groups. Okay, here we go. And let's see, the National Coastal Condition Assessment. That was interesting. I've got that too, the latest 2015 report. And it basically speaks about overall improvement in the Gulf Coast. Since 2010, population has increased, but assessing like biological condition was pretty good, about 68%, and that's close to the national average of about 71%. Eutrophication index was a little bit troubled. We'll skip that. Sediment quality index, the measure of contaminants and toxicity for in there it was improved since 2010. They've rated about a 75% in the good factor. The ERA, the Estuary Habitat Restoration Council, it's an interagency program, really interesting work that they do. I didn't bring the thing that I had on them, but you've got a combination of efforts with NOAA, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, you've got EPA, Department of Agriculture, and the Army Corps of Engineers. So basically the council is responsible for strategy, monitoring, restoration projects, and they're also going to recommend projects for future funding to the U.S. Army Corps. And, the other thing too is like the Estuary Restoration Act. That is pretty interesting, and it came out in like 2000. I think they've done some amendments to 2012. But basically, it's about like wetland losses and damage, silting contamination, and basically they've declared estuaries as a priority for restoring and overall management. So, I've learned a lot about how important they are. I never really understood. I think we all understood maybe the physical characteristics, but there's a ton of information out there. That this thing could have just blown up into a huge amount of information, but I tried to keep it as concise as I could, and I think I'm pretty good on time, right? Well, not sure. Okay. All right, but that's